been a while since we've been on the show, so a lot of things. First off, salute to our third member who's not with us today. We're Sami Jama, the GOAT, the man of the hour himself. He will be joining us next episode. Tune into that. But yeah, it's been a while since we've been back. New space, fresh set, fresh energy.
Look at this. Look at our artwork right here.
Feng shui, but same type of politics, same type of timing, same type of energy. And we're only here to elevate. We're only here to grow and prosper, right?
For sure.
And with that being said, I want us to get into what's been going on while we've been away, at least,
A lot.
There's been some stuff in the news. More specifically, some diddling.
Diddy?
The diddler of diddling.
Did he do it?
Did he? I would say yes, he did. But, in short, there was a 4-part documentary series that came out on Netflix, executive produced by 50 Cent, the long-awaited documentary people have been waiting for about P. Diddy and his, chaotic life and, his villain origin and villain demise, But a lot, I'm not gonna lie, I know you guys mentioned to me that you guys haven't seen it all yet, so I'll give you guys in a nutshell without spoiling too much. They just pretty much went through all of the controversies he's ever endured in headlines, and even some theory-based controversies that he's had behind the scenes. And it all kind of just points to, and this is kind of what I want to have a conversation with you guys about, is being drunk with power, becoming.
Wish I was.
All right, relax. You're not P. Diddy. We're not putting that on. Hey, just let me finish what I'm saying, and then you can get into where you can. All right.
You don't even know where he's going.
Let me lead to my point, and then you can insert yourself in the conversation. All right. But essentially, being drunk with power or becoming madly obsessed with control, whether it's people, finances, opportunities, resources. And life, to be honest with you, just life and death. And that's kind of what the basis of that documentary series was that this guy, a kid from Harlem who grew up with a single mother and in a pretty suburban kind of neighborhood, right, just kept trying to strive for more at the expense of anyone and anything, just so that he can, enjoy life to the highest degree. And that made me think about some of the things about power in general and people that, get into these powerful situations and how they kind of abuse their power and how these stories are becoming more and more prevalent today with the added layer of social media and people having a phone on them at all times to record evidence, right? But it also makes me think, or it leads me to beg the question, can you become that powerful without abusing your power? To the point where you're in control of so many people's lives, finances, livelihoods, families, opportunity, mental stability. There's so much things that P. Diddy himself, Puff Daddy, whatever he wants to go by, had control over people, right? That ended up leading to the demise of so many others, but ultimately the demise of himself too, right? So it leads me to think, is it inevitable? Is this something that people have to go through if they get to certain heights of life? In terms of North America and the entertainment industry itself more specifically for the entertainment industry, because we're people that are pursuing a form of content creation too, right? So, inshallah, we get to a high state of valuableness, right? But at the same time, will we have to compromise our morality for that? Is that inevitable? What do you guys think?
I don't think it's inevitable if you realize the point you're getting to. I think Kevin Hart spoke to this in several interviews where he said he's seen people going over the deep end. He's seen himself approaching it by partying, by heavily drinking, by doing whatever the environment caused him to do, and then realized, okay, I'm going too far. Let me step back and start grasping with reality and just stick to work. Now everyone focuses on his workaholic as for the last 15 years. Instead of the adultery or drinking or whatever that stopped probably a decade ago or 7 years ago, what have you. I think you have to cope with life, and a lot of people don't. You passed that. You surpassed that a long time ago for a lot of people like Diddy, like the Harvey Weinsteins, like the Bill Cosbys that are accused of all these heinous acts. It's a hustler to God complex.
Exactly.
The little bit I've heard of the Diddy doc, it started off with him being a hustler driving from here. I think he went to Howard in Georgia, and he would drive back to New York for internship opportunities and different things. and be driving these, I think, trips in a day to where he was now when he went to prison, with all these videos coming out of him and Cassie and stories from the past coming out with him controlling artists' rights, but controlling other aspects of people's lives as well. So I think it's inevitable if you pass a certain point, but if you realize yourself and you stay focused and you don't care about certain fame, like Jim Carrey, you stop yourself from getting to that point.
Interesting. How do you think they do that?
Do
you have to hit a wall? Do you think?
I think you have to. I don't think you have to hit a wall. I think you just have to realize yourself where you're headed. Because I think Jim Carrey, I don't think in public at least, he hasn't hit a wall. He just removed himself completely as soon as he's seen how crazy the environment was and how crazy it can get for himself, and grew a beard and just disappeared somewhere, and then started slowly coming back to society or to the public eye.
So you have to distance yourself, you're saying?
I think you have to distance yourself, at least if you realize the wall's coming. And the wall's inevitable if you're going on the same track as you're headed.
So you're saying, yes, it is inevitable, but you can be conscious of
You can be conscious of it.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting point. What do you think?
I think it's just based off your character. Like, you just have to make sure that the bigger you grow, the more your words, your influence grow. So you just have to understand that you as a person, right now, this company that you guys have right now, even though it's a few people, there's already actions that you guys are doing that are influencing each other and the people that are directly impacted by this podcast, right? It's kind of a small scale right now, like it's gonna grow big, obviously. But when it does get bigger, that influence is gonna become much more visible to you guys, and you guys are gonna see that it's taken, twisted, like the whole parasocial thing. Like, people are just gonna take it and just run with it. So there's some responsibility on yourself just to make sure that you keep to your ways, keep to your truths, as well as you make sure that you have your proper respect for your workplace, and make sure that you treat people with respect and kindness. Other than that, like, you can't really control what other people do with the content that you put out.
That's true. And
you know what I mean?
That's kind of one of the issues that Diddy had too, I feel like, throughout the documentary. I'm just inferring, right? But I feel like the ability, or the aspect of everybody loving you, right? And some people almost becoming obsessed with you, right? 'Cause that's, women are throwing themselves at him. Like, he was like the biggest guy out there in hip hop at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was so like attractive to the audience, to his audience at the time. So just having that like level of appeal, right, can lead to what you're saying, like a God complex, right? Yeah. And that's where I question is like, it's like you're saying, like, detaching yourself is a great way of, avoiding the end fall, right? But how many people that are going through this, like, for example, if everybody was just coming at you right now, you guys as is, and just saying, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you," by year 3, year 4, you're not going to be feeling what you felt day 1 or day 10. You know what I mean? So like, you almost sort of become numb to it to a certain degree. And I feel like a lot of the time people start to feel that numbness, right? Of people loving them and adoring them at all times, to the point where they try to start, I wouldn't say taking advantage, but pushing the buttons a little bit, pushing the limits a little bit, like, see how much I can gain from this.
Without any
even
consequences.
From a small scale to a bigger scale to a bigger scale, like, it's pretty much just like filling up a glass that's going to overfill eventually, right? But they're slowly but surely, like, it starts with, I feel like with guys specifically, like, it starts with women, right? And they do whatever they can to find the most attractive women.
Indulge.
Yeah, they indulge, and they just kind of discard them as like they're not even human beings to a certain degree, right? So I feel like that's a hard-hitting place for guys that have like a power aspect or a power conflict in their lives that they're going through. But then money, money is the key to everybody's lives, right? So being able to provide or withhold a certain amount of finances for somebody else can like let's say, for example, and these are just like, it's not specifically related to Diddy, but like somebody in a position that is in control of finances to it, like let's say like the general manager of a bank or something like that, right? Could be having a bad day, or could have some sort of like a rough history with somebody, and that person can come into the bank and get denied for a loan, just off of the strength of I can, you know what I mean? So it's like these little things, like, can you be cognizant of them while they're going on? Are there ways to kind of detach yourself? Because like the question I have for you is like, how do you realize that you need to distance yourself? What needs to happen? Does it need to be something big? Does it need to be a self-realization moment? Do you need to have like a life-changing, a milestone in your life? You need to like have a kid or something like that? Like, what are these things? And I don't know. Like, obviously, I'm not somebody who's, you know, extremely powerful person. But like you're saying, on a small scale, we do have like some sort of like an organization being built right now that we're all kind of wearing different hats in, right? And that will lead to a real influence too eventually, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, my question is like, how do you stay in front of the curve? You know what I mean? Before it gets too late.
I think it's really rooted in self-awareness.
Okay. Good
Like
point.
you have to be able to understand like when you're on the screen, as well as any medium that you're doing. We already know that Diddy, he made songs. He's big in music. Like it's not only through the screens, but it's also through whatever medium you're doing. You have to just be aware of what it means to people, the consequences, as well as just make sure that when it does come to your way, when you are influenced by all that fame, all that money, it just inflates who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You give Diddy the money and influence that he had when he was 5-10 years into the game, and you give it to him day one, give him a week, he's gonna end up doing the same things he was doing, because that's who he is. You know what I mean? Sure, there might have been some events, some of the things that happened in the music industry that altered him, maybe. But at the end of the day, if you boil it down, that person was always there. And that person had to be worked on. You have to work on his character. You have to work on how he treats people, how he views people. And you have to make sure that like it's just rooted in self-awareness. Yeah.
I mean, I'm never going to be a tyrant boss. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very lackadaisical. I don't give two shits. But you better not show up late.
Yeah, but that's just like, that's your work.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we have different standards, you know, like everybody has their way of like leading the ship in some degree. But at the same time, too, you can't get drunk off that power. You know what I mean? Like, if some people need to get let go, they need to get let go. That makes sense.
That's
everything
perfectly fine.
Everything is a sense of what's best for the business, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, too, we can never be like, you can never leave breadcrumbs for people and never be in that position where you're like egging someone on or leading someone on to their own demise or their own despair. That's where you get to, you're too far gone, you know, like you're not the right person for this. And that's what happens majority of the time too. Like, and that's the issue here, is that those people, the people that think that way, that will leave the breadcrumbs on the table for people to chase throughout their time with them, right? Those are the type of people that tend to succeed. They tend to be the ones that are the biggest fish, you know? And you see guys like, I mean, I don't want to get too far out of, you know, like too grandiose on this conversation, but like you see guys like Bezos, you know, and there's video. I don't know if you guys ever seen this one video that's been circulating, but there's a video of Jeff Bezos walking into Amazon and then shaking the hands of the people that are working there, right? And then side by side while the video is going on, it shows a counter of how much money Jeff Bezos is making per second versus how much money the person he's shaking his hand is making per second. And it's a visual counter while the interaction is happening. It's like showing you right there how much this person's worth.
Astronomically different.
And it's astronomically different, right? But some people would say, and a lot of people that are probably like, you know, conversationalists in this topic would say that you need some sort of like ruthlessness to become a Jeff Bezos.
100%.
You know? You need to really ruin some lives, essentially, you know, without saying it, to get to the point where you need to get to. And that, to me, I just find is like an odd paradox.
You have to understand we live in a cruel world, right? Especially business, it's ruthless. So you have to, like, a lot of businessmen, a lot of people that have reached the top, they understand that it's a game. There's no emotions in it. You have to exploit. You have to make sure that that you take advantage. You make sure that there's highest efficiencies. Even if you're cutting off labor, you're distancing yourself from the people that you care about just to make it to the top. And when you do that, your character just diminishes.
But then that opens up so much room for demise. You know what I mean?
Demise, really, because like let's talk about Jeff Bezos. Like if you look at them on the sphere of like the planet, and you actually compare them to the modern man, like the ordinary man, you're gonna see that they have much more resources. Their lives are probably much, I wouldn't say better, because I don't know these people personally.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But they have much more resources.
I would even argue that Jeff Bezos is not a happy man.
I don't know.
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, I'm just theorizing, but I would argue it, because to be honest with you, like, how can you have motivation for that much when you have that much? You know what I mean? That makes sense?
They want more. They're addicted to it.
They're
addicted to making more money.
That's what I think brings unhappiness. That's my theory.
I don't think so, because that's their lives and they're being successful. When you're successful, that gives you a certain self-accomplishment feeling. And that's all that they really care about. Their success.
That's I feel like that's the paradox itself. This is just my theory, right? This is Slim's wild corner. You know what I mean? Let me just be my Tim Hat for a second here.
Yeah.
But I truly think that when people become like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, I think they're actually mentally sick. Like they actually have some sort of like wires that have been crossed in the wrong way where they physically can't see the end. And I think they're pushing themselves into the grave as we speak. And that's what brings total unhappiness.
We were talking about the John Cena interview when we were in the car right now, and they were talking about the interview Joe Rogan did with the guy from NVIDIA, which is basically the guy that makes the AI chips. So they were talking about how the guy
a whole lot more than that, but go ahead.
That's basic. That's the basic thing the general population would know, except for the IT environment. That's what I know about.
I IT specialist right here.
Yeah. Anyway, they were talking about how the guy constantly 7 days a week vacations, regardless. He's 60+ years old.
He vacations 7 days a week?
No, he's 7 days a week. He's working, regardless if he's on vacation, regular life.
Oh, he's like a workaholic.
Yeah.
He's working. Family environment. He's working. So you get to the level where you're competing with people that you don't want them to get to the level where surpass where you are. And at the same time, you want to make sure you're accomplishing more and be known for whatever that is in your specific field. Like there's a big AI race that's going on that everyone knows about. That Facebook Meta has hired a bunch of people, techs from other companies, and OpenAI is doing the same thing, and Microsoft, and all of them are running for competing, seeing each other. And I think it's the same thing in sports, athletes, chess players, whoever you are. You see somebody, you're not competing, you're not living of the morality of the normal man. You live in the morality of the room you're in now. And that I think that shifts a little bit. So the question, like you said, they have different resources, they attain different things, they're looking at different things than we are. So our morality and our vision of what they should be and how they're living in the rooms they're in and the rooms they're invited to, I think it skews things a little bit more. Because that's how people have so many middle managers. They don't have to see the people he's shaking hands with.
Facts.
They have to see the manager of the manager of the manager. And they say, oh, everything's cool down there. No, don't worry about them. Yeah. They're all right.
Okay. So yes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Well, I mean, like, to be honest, it is a very thought-provoking topic. But to kind of put a button on this conversation, I would recommend you guys watch the Diddy documentary. It's 4 episodes. It goes through from the 90s all the way till modern day of like I said, all the controversies, all the theories. And there's some really interesting parts in there that, because like I said, we're going to put a button on this conversation, but it very much, the comparison I can give it to, the direct comparison, is this one Kanye West documentary that came out a couple years ago that followed his life and kind of his journey. And the similarities I found was that both men were raised in a certain environment where they were taken care of, but very quickly after they became like adolescent men, let go into the world and became like popular, adored, and loved, right? And then they did not have their support system with them throughout their journeys. So that's the direct comparison I can make from that. And it's a very interesting like human nature kind of documentary when you kind of think about it in like a third sense. But yeah, I really recommend it. I think it's 4 very interesting, very entertaining episodes that you can go through. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.